Good morning, everyone. This is a meeting of the Howard County Delegation. We have one senator with us. We are hoping to have at least one more join us soon, so we'll have a quorum on both sides of the delegation. But in the meantime, we are going to rearrange a little bit and get started with some of the items for discussion. And so that's our second section of the agenda. And first up is Howard County 424. And that is Delegate Hill's bill. So Delegate Hill, you want to give us a brief intro and then we'll take questions and discussion.
Sure. So what this bill does is really two things. The first thing is ensure that renters in Columbia Association lien assessed properties receive the same disclosures that homeowners on those properties receive with respect to their being residents of a village or town center, and directing them to where they can go, probably online, to find out what being a resident under Columbia Association oversight or land means. So they're paying a lien, or the property is subject to a lien. And so they just need to know what kinds of responsibilities or rights go with that. And then the second piece is to allow that lien to be treated as a tax credit, or for purposes of a tax credit.
Any questions or discussion? Delegate Terrassa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question about this. So is that allowing the income tax subtraction modification for everyone, or that's not just for
the homeowners who are on lien paying?
Okay. Okay. Great. Thanks. Oh, sorry. Can I just add to that? And have you've worked with, I guess, legal to make sure that that part can be done? Because I think that was discussed many years ago, and I think we thought it was only if you could become a city that you could do that subtraction modification, but if you can, I mean, I certainly think the people of Columbia would be happy about that.
Right. No, I mean, I asked the administration. I did not speak with legal per se. I asked the administration, and I'm still waiting to hear from Maureen about whether they have any concerns or issues with the bill. And I guess my thought process was that we've got, full committees that look at this stuff in great detail. And if we pass this as a delegation, then it may be that Ways and Means decides that that piece has to come out. We know that Columbia Association has been treated both as a homeowners association, not as a homeowners association.
Yep.
It is exempt from many things in state law. But I think as a delegation, or at least as a member of the delegation, I thought it would be appropriate to put it forth and not prejudge what that is. And I think a few years ago, if you looked at the number of times Columbia Association was exempt from state laws for homeowners association, it would be a different number of times, right? So we have a different historic record now than we would have had even 5 years ago.
That's
about
fair.
how unique this particular structure is.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on how unique the structure is.
Okay, thank you. Delegate Wu.
Thank you, Chair. Delegate Hill, I think this is a great bill. So my question is, why we don't hear any feedback from the community? People should be applauded for this effort.
Thanks, Delegate Wu. I have had discussions with Columbia Association. We worked out a lot of the legal language with their counsel, and we have presented this bill in front of the Columbia Council and discussed it at several of the village boards, both to get the language right and make sure that they understood what we were trying to do. But yeah. Thanks. I'd like to move the bill, Madam Chair.
So,
Okay.
I actually wanted to, I'm recognizing myself for a comment. I did notice we did receive a letter of opposition from the Harper's Choice Village Board last night. I know that was, late coming, but I'm guessing that they were, working out their internal process to take a position as a body. So I'm concerned. I mean, I appreciate what you're trying to do. And as you know, I previously had proposed legislation regarding voting rights. And I think there's, CA is, or CA and the villages, right, are complex in that they are, sort of HOAs, but the lien is a lot like a tax. I think the subtraction modification you're proposing is sort of suggesting to treat it more like a tax than HOA dues, right? And that might make sense. Again, I think if we're acknowledging that it's a tax, then the voting structure should not be based on property ownership, right? So I think there are a lot of important issues here that would be good to work out. I feel I'm not sure this bill captures the right approach. So I'm concerned about that. And then receiving Harper's Choice's letter was concerning too.
I'm looking at the letter from Harper's Choice, if I may. And then I have received a letter this morning. And their letter says they're concerned about whether this gives rights to commercial tenants to which they are not entitled, which is not having to do with and I think the only right it gives commercial tenants is taken exactly from the Columbia Parks and Recreation Association founding documents, which simply say that that employees of businesses that are located on lien paying properties are considered members. They're not considered residents, but they're considered members for purposes such as getting a discount. And I know for many businesses, I've had my business located on lien paying property, that has been an incentive to employees. And so we had tried to work that language out to be clear. That doesn't, and I can find that exact document if you want to read exactly what that says. So that's what they have issue with. And I think it's has to do with an understanding of what the founding documents say. And every village is allowed to change that language and to take those that status away. And in the 50 odd years, they have not done so. But that's what they're talking about. And then I have another letter from a board member who seems to disagree with their concerns. So there is some to look at, and I can look at that, and maybe if there's time, we can come back to this. So I
Okay.
can table it for now and come
Sure.
back later today or at
Sure. Now that we have a quorum present from the Senate, I do want to go back to start with our voting list from the top of the agenda. Welcome, Senator Lamb. I know you were delayed, but you also have the first bill up on the list. So first up for voting is Howard County 124. This is the public campaign financing for Board of Education. We discussed it previously. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. As I said, we did discuss this previously. Are there any questions at this point? Ms. Doring, can you please call the vote?
Yes. Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Delmark,
Yes.
Senator Gazone, Senator Hester, Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Gazone,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Terraza,
Yes.
Delegate Watson, yes, Delegate Wu,
Yes.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
I'm going to come back to the senators. Senator Hester,
She may be having some technical difficulties.
okay.
We can come back to her.
I saw Senator Gazone here.
Yeah, I don't believe he's on the call anymore.
Okay.
He's unable to get off of mute, so we can circle back to him.
Okay. Delegate Terraza. You have your hand raised?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. I thought we couldn't vote without a Senate.
Quorum.
Senate quorum.
So I am a little.
Senator
appear
Hester
to have
is
a-
on the call. Senator Hester is on the call.
Okay,
She
but
just
she
can't,
has to be
she
able to
can't-
participate on the call.
She can't unmute herself.
No, I thought you said Senator Gazone couldn't unmute himself.
I know. I made
I'm
a
going to
mistake.
try and unmute or request Senator Hester.
It looks like she just dropped off and is trying to
Dropped.
rejoin.
Okay.
So. Delegate Hill, is your hand raised?
I was not aware of my hand being up.
Oh, okay.
I'll take it down. I'll take it down.
Okay, Senator Hester, can you hear us? Are you able to unmute yourself now?
She texted me, I vote yes. She's having trouble.
I think the host can unmute her. Rebecca,
I can
you try to-
request that she unmute, but I can't unmute her
Oh.
without her.
May I suggest we
I think it's a star six.
hold and move on?
Can we leave the vote? Can I move that we leave the vote open to the end of the meeting?
Second.
Senator Hester, can you? Nope, she appeared to be unmuted.
No, she dropped.
Okay. All right, well, given our current lack of quorum, let's go back to discussion, and we are on Howard County 1624. Delegate Watson, would you like to give us an overview?
Yes, this is a bill that simply provides a little bit more transparency into the decisions made from the time that the superintendent introduces the capital budget to the time the Board of Education approved it. I spoke with superintendent and his staff about this bill, and this was actually their suggestion. We were going to go another route, which would involve requiring the Board of Education to use their own criteria. But since criteria changes, we thought this made more sense. And simply, it would allow this to understand better the decisions of the Board of Education with regard to capital planning. We all know we've had problems with this with various schools and school communities. And it simply, it requires them to explain in writing the rationale of their vote within 30 days and post it on the website and send it to us.
Okay, Delegate Terraza.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate Watson. I think some more clarity on this is a good idea, but I'm wondering, because if I'm reading this right, or maybe I'm not reading it right, so just let me know if it does the other opposite, but this is if the Board of Ed, is this if the Board of Ed's bill is different than the superintendent's, or both?
It is if the board changes anything with regard to capital projects, like the priority. if the board makes changes to the superintendent's capital budget, they will explain their changes. That's what this does.
Okay,
In
so
writing.
would you consider an amendment to do the opposite as well? I mean, one of the problems we have is that the school board finalizes the budget that goes to the county executive. And then the next year, sometimes the superintendent's budget is different than the Board of Ed's. So it seems to me that we should be doing both directions.
That's not this bill. This bill is simply to, to make the assumption that the forthcoming budget from the professionals is the budget that we're working from. And if the board makes changes in it, they're more likely to be affected by political motivations. And so we just want them to explain why they are changing. I don't think we want to get involved in having the superintendent, who doesn't report to us, explain to us why he's changing the budget from the previous year. This is very simple.
Yeah,
It involves one current year and explaining the changes. And I'm comfortable with the way that it is now.
Yeah. So I guess I'm uncomfortable with it not doing both directions. From my perspective, the Board of Ed is the one that finalizes a budget. The superintendent's budget is just a proposal to them. So what we should be working from is the actual budget submitted by the Board of Ed. And I'm not sure why we wouldn't want to know an explanation in both directions. So
The superintendent begins the budget process. The Board of Ed does not send the budget to the superintendent.
right, but they propose a budget. And then the next year's budget, if that changes, should have an explanation just the same.
We're talking about one budget year. If you want to do a bill that involves the entire capital plan, you can do that. But this is one budget year. The superintendent starts the process. Whatever the board changes, they just need to provide the rationale. And that's it. And so Delegate Trauza, if the superintendent were to change something from the previous year and the board were to change it back, then you'd have an explanation of that under this bill.
I mean, it seems to me that if we're looking at trying to get better information to the public and consistency with capital projects, it would make sense to do both directions. So I guess, can I propose an amendment even if it's not a friendly amendment? I don't know how that works, Madam Chair and Mr. Chair.
I think the only thing I would say about that is at this late date, I think that is problematic because you don't have the benefit of hearing from the superintendent. If you wanted to do that, or if you wanted to propose that for the future, you could do your own bill next session after you've had an opportunity to meet with the superintendent and understand the consequences of it. That would be my suggestion. But this is very simple. Let's put it in place, see how it works. And if it needs to be changed next year, then you can do that with a little bit more information from superintendent and the board.
Right. It seems to me that the problem has occurred in both directions for communities, and certainly in my community, in Oakland Mills, that has just had a flood this week and a pipe burst, and are very concerned about mold. Their concern has been that what the board puts in, the superintendent has changed, and the superintendent's is only a proposed budget.
I understand your point, but I think that is a different bill perhaps for next year.
Let me move on to Delegate Hill, who has her hand up.
Thank you. Delegate Watson, thank you for the bill. I'm in favor of the bill. My only concern is we've seen where we've asked for explanations at the state level from administrations, and what we get is really almost useless. We changed because our priorities are different. We changed, and I'm wondering if you'd be open to just adding the word of detailed.
Yes.
Okay. And so I would ask for that to be taken as a friendly amendment, detailed rationale.
I accept that as a friendly amendment.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Delegate Wu.
I want to give some background and then want to move forward for approval. So there are two processes for the school capital budget. The first, the superintendent provide one, and that from their office, more kind of professional one. And then the budget goes to the board. And on the board side, I think that's the one a lot of committee members get confused, sometimes feel disappointed because this year the board didn't went through the order the school office provide because they actually have a system to really rating the need of each capital budget. Unfortunately, the top two, which had been rated as the most necessary, was just moved away without any reason because the board member didn't look at the number and they're not showing that number during the public meeting. If the public knows that number on the screen, I think they know which two renovation projects should be on the top. I think this bill just try to rectify the situation, make sure the public are aware of what the situation there. If they're rating internally from our professional staff in the school system, they should make that number public. And if the board change their priority, the public should have the power to know why they're changing that. I think it's simply this bill is as simple as that. So I think it's a good intention to really make sure we know what's happening there. I really applaud Delegate Watson to propose this bill. I move with amended.
Second.
I still-
Delegate Terasa.
Thank you. I don't understand why we wouldn't provide that information in both directions. I realize your community has been more concerned about the board changing the budget from the superintendent's budget, but our community has been concerned about the superintendent changing the Board of Ed's actual budget, not proposed budget, but their actual budget published and finalized.
Can I respond? So the superintendent does not change the board budget because that's not the workflow. It's the superintendent provide a budget.
Right, but it's
So-
changed from the, go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry, Delegate Terasa, I actually have a clarifying question on this myself. So if I'm understanding correctly, what Delegate Terasa is talking about is not a change in the budget for a given fiscal year,
Yeah.
but changes in the CIP, right? So
Yeah.
the board approves not just the budget for the given fiscal year, but also I think a 5-year and a 10-year outlook, correct?
Yes.
And-
Once the board approves a long-term budget or short-term or long-term, they're like 5-year and 10-year. And then
Right.
next year, they come back to be evaluated again through the professional. Once the budget has been approved in general, that will not change. So then
Right, but
propose that
I
back.
think
There-
what Delegate Terasa is referring to is after the budget is approved, the budget for the given fiscal year and the 5-year and 10-year outlook, right, in the CIP, the following year, when the school system, when the superintendent and their staff start the new budget system, they may make changes to that 5-year and 10-year outlook. And
Yes,
I believe
that's-
those,
there's a very detailed explanation in the budget book, capital budget
Yes.
book. So you even have a system scoring how they rated everything, why they're moving. Because, for example, the growth of the student population makes certain changes to requirement, or some school deteriorated over the time quicker than other. Everything had been really detailed in the capital budget book.
and
The
so,
explanation is already given.
right, so just to, I'm trying to bring this together. I believe it's not that you're objecting to that information being reported. I believe you're saying that information already is reported.
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes.
Okay.
Can you explain where that's reported? And like, I understand that they explain where the budget comes from, but I don't recall an explanation from why it's changed from the previous year.
So each year there are two budget. One is for operating budget and the other for the capital budget. So
Yeah.
in each budget book, that tells every project why they're doing that, why they need that position.
Right, but it doesn't explain why it's changed from the previous year.
Yes,
Yes,
it-
it explain.
It does. Where does that explain? Where is that explained?
It's in the rationale of the project.
I don't recall.
in the capital
If it's
budget.
provided anyway, would there be a harm in asking for that to be reported as well to us? In this.
I
bill?
think, I mean, I'm going to speak up here now as a sponsor of the bill. I think that is a different bill with different implications that needs, and maybe it's a good idea, but it needs to be vetted through, in my opinion, the superintendent's office so that we understand what we're doing.
Okay.
I would like at this point to
I'd
call the
like to
question
move,
because this
I'm
is a very
moving, I'm
simple
moving my amendment
bill.
that I asked about before.
Okay,
Second,
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for an amendment. Delegate Tarasa, can you please restate your amendment?
Right, it's if the capital budget proposed by the superintendent has differences from the capital budget approved by the Howard County Board of Education the previous year. So there should be what's stated in the bill now or this other circumstance. And then it'll be the same thing. Shall publish a report on the Howard County Public School System's website within 30 days that includes. It just add more information. I'm not sure why we wouldn't want to include more information for our constituents who have similar concerns about changes in the capital program.
Okay. Delegate Wu.
Thank you, Chair. I personally feel that's doable for the school system as long as they provide that capital budget book alone to explain why it's changing. So personally, I feel should be amendable. I don't know how our original sponsor, Delegate Watson, think.
well, let me just jump in. I think very simply, all the superintendent would need to do is post the capital budget to the website, which is exactly what Mr. Oz is asking. So
Well, under that, we could have the Board of Ed publish their minutes and
It's-
their, I mean, it'd be the
it's-
same thing. The Board of Ed explains their vote. So we could publish their minutes and it's already on the site.
I'm not arguing
Okay.
with
I-
Delegate
I'm
Strauss.
gonna step in here for a second and try to suggest, in the interest of time and keeping this meeting moving and keeping bills moving. Delegate Tarasa, I know you've moved and seconded your amendment. My suggestion would be that we not adopt the amendment at this point. If you're open to my suggestion, maybe you'll withdraw your motion, but that we move the bill forward and continue this conversation with the possibility that the delegation requests that amendment be made in committee. I think I appreciate what you're trying to get at, and I also understand that the information is already published in the capital budget. I understand that the capital budget is a very dense document that a lot of folks don't know how to find or where to find that explanation, right? So I do think there's some merit in what you're asking for. I also would want to consult the school system. So I guess I'm making that suggestion. I don't know if you're open to that we could offer the amendment in committee, but move the bill out of delegation, just to get it filed and keep things moving.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear from some others, but I'm not super comfortable withdrawing a motion and voting on a bill because I believe the
order.
chair.
Okay.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Delegate Atterbury.
thank you. I thought I heard somebody else talking that I don't know who that was. Thank you. So, I mean, I would be curious to hear from the Board of Ed who's not here. I mean, the issue is if it comes to committee, it's still, you know, I'm not sure we would hear from the school system or the Board of Ed. It would be the subcommittee making those decisions. So I think it's better if the folks from the county make the decision. And you know, I support the amendment. All week I've been getting text messages from friends that I know with kids at Oakland Mills High School, literally walking through water. I have been getting tons of emails and calls about the situation. So I don't think there's any harm in more information being provided. I don't think it's hurting the legislation at all.
Point of order, a call for, Madam Chair, I think the motion's been moved and seconded. You've asked it to be withdrawn. It's not been. I think we call for a vote on the motion.
Can we restate the motion, please? Or exactly what the amendment says?
And Mr. Babbage, can you please, I want to make sure that you've got it as well. So can you please state what you have and have Delegate Terrassa confirm?
I wasn't able to record it all in detail, the conversation. So my plan was, if I had to end up drafting the amendment, was to come back and just make sure I got the wording correctly and work with Delegate Terrassa.
Could Delegate Terrassa just repeat what her motion is?
Okay, well, I don't have it written down, so let me see if I can try, but so after it says if the capital budget approved by Howard County Board of Ed has, if the capital budget, right, after that comma on line 6, it should say, or if the capital budget approved, I'm sorry, if the superintendent's of schools proposed capital budget has differences from the previous years. I'm not sure how to state that correctly.
I'm sorry, Delegate Terrassa, do you mean the capital budget or the capital improvement plan?
I guess it's the whatever
The CIP. But
right, and it's the whole thing. I'm assuming you guys want explanations. Like, I'm assuming that you're including in your bill any explanations that go beyond the current year. Is that not correct, what that means?
My bill is just dealing with the current fiscal year budget that is adopted.
The current fiscal
So,
year and not,
no, it doesn't deal with the improvement plan because by nature, the capital improvement plan is intended to change when circumstances change. So you give your best shot at a 10-year plan, but sometimes things do have to change depending on different circumstances. So the capital improvement plan is designed to change. The actual budget that comes forward in 1 year, when that changes, my goal was to explain that.
so if the superintendent, based on the condition of Oakland Mills High School at this point, were to move up the project to this coming year, that would not need an explanation.
In the capital, you mean in the capital improvement plan, not in the current budget, right?
It's all part of the what's proposed, but yes.
Let's look at the language exactly.
Can I make a suggestion that we hold this till later in this meeting or till tomorrow? Because we're not going to get to any of the other bills at this rate.
Well,
I think it's a pretty
We've got-
simple request.
we've got a motion on the floor, a couple of them. So I'd like to move forward with it. Just give me a quick second. Actually, Delegate Terrassa, this is your amendment. So why don't you take a look at the bill and tell me where it is that you want to put that in?
I just did.
Okay, what page?
Page 2, line 6, after proposed capital budget.
And what, and your language is exactly what again?
I said it already. Like, I guess I don't know. Has anybody recorded what I said?
I wrote it down in the best detail I could. On page 2 in line 6, after the comma, or if the superintendent's proposed capital improvement plan differs from previous years.
Yeah,
comma.
so the original language is capital budget, which is fine. You can leave that in there. If you want to put the CIP in your sentence for going in the reverse, you can do that. So if somebody would
Or if
just
the
read,
capital budget differs from the CIP. It should be from the whole thing that's proposed by, go ahead, sorry.
Can I make a suggestion just to clarify? It's gonna be more words, but I think a little bit clearer. I think that whole paragraph B, lines 4 through 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we simply repeat that with
CIP.
if the capital improvement plan proposed by the superintendent has differences from, right, we're just flipping it, has differences from the prior year's approved
See-
capital improvement plan, the
If the superintendent's budget,
superintendent,
Yes, you got
the
it.
superintendent shall publish a report, because we're flipping not just budget versus capital improvement, but also who's doing the work, right? It doesn't make sense that the board would publish a report explaining the superintendent's changes. We want the superintendent to publish a report.
that
explaining
makes
his
sense,
change.
but it should be from the previous year's capital improvement project or like the capital budget or the capital improvement project
Capital improvement plan
plan, sorry.
includes the budget.
Great.
I have no objection if you want to repeat that paragraph with that language. And I would just say that it won't be that much of a burden on the school system because they can simply publish the portion of the pages where it is located.
Right, this will pull it out as highlighted for
Yes,
that explanation.
That's what Delegate
but-
Wilson said.
but these are two different reports at two different times. I just want to make that point,
Right.
both within 30 days. Okay.
Are you Delegate Terrassa, since it was originally your motion, are you okay with that
Well,
stating?
Delegate Watson repeated 30 days. I don't know how long it is between when the superintendent proposes their budget and Board of Education approves it.
It's 30 days after approval. It's 30 days
Approval of the-
after the board approves it. So when the board makes their decisions, they have to explain their rationale for doing so after they approve it.
No, I understand that, but when the superintendent proposes their budget, how long does if the superintendent doesn't have to explain it for 30 days and the Board of Ed has already approved it, that's not helpful for
The process is longer than 30 days from the time the superintendent introduces his capital improvement plan
Great.
to when the board approves it.
Okay,
But as I said, it's already
That's great.
published within the document, so it shouldn't be that difficult.
okay. Great.
Okay. Ms. Doran, can you please call the vote on this amendment?
Yes. Senator Lamb,
This is the amendment that with the language we just clarified, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Senator Gazone, Senator Hester,
Yes.
Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Gazone,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Terrazza,
Yes,
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Delegate Wu,
Yes.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Move the bill as amended.
Second.
We also had Delegate Hill's amendment.
That was passed, right?
That was, my motion was on the amended bill, so her one word was part of my motion.
It was a friendly amendment.
So you, okay. Okay,
So
Um,
to clarify for the drafter, we're inserting the word detailed into,
line 12 before rationale, correct?
Yes.
Are you good, Mr. Babich, with that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. So now, Ms. Doran, can you please call the vote on the bill as amended?
Yes. Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Senator Gazone, Senator Hester,
Yes.
Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Gazone,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes,
Delegate Terraza,
Yes.
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Delegate Wu,
Yes.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay. And now we are going back to our voting list and we are on Howard County. Did we get Senator Hester's vote on Howard County 1?
Not verbally.
Senator Hester, would you like to cast a vote on Howard County 124?
Yes, please. I'm sorry. I literally could not get off mute. My vote was yes.
Thank you.
The motion passes.
All right. All right, Howard County 224, we've already discussed. Is there a motion?
What bill? Sorry, I missed that.
Howard County 224. So this is the Board of Education Board Member Terms and Compensation Commission.
Oh, I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We've discussed previously. Any additional questions or discussion? Ms. Doring, please call the vote.
Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Senator Gazone,
Yes, and if you can put me on the last one too.
Okay.
Yes.
Senator Hester,
Yes.
Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Gazone,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
yes, yes, yes,
Delegate Terraza,
Yes.
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Delegate Wu,
No.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay. Howard County 324. This is the Board of Education Liquidated Damages Model Policy and Requirements. Is there a motion?
I think there's an amendment.
There
I
is.
think, yeah.
Yeah.
So if I can introduce the amendments just briefly, Madam Chair, if that's okay.
Sure. Did you want to move the bill first or?
Sure, I move to approve the bill.
Second.
Okay.
All right. And then
Would you like me to go through?
move the amendment or you?
Sure, I'll move the amendments. I think everyone should have received the amendments earlier. Okay.
Can you just get a second?
Are the amendments in the drive?
Yes,
Yes.
I believe they are, Ms. Doring,
I
correct?
can second
Yes.
the amendments.
Or
Second.
Okay.
your email.
Thanks.
I second the amendments if that's what you're asking for.
Thank you. Okay, Senator Lamb, it's been moved and seconded. Go ahead and discuss.
Sure. So the amendments remove the references to model policies because the board felt that, this could be addressed through their normal policies. It also removed references to the superintendent to make clear that the board is the ultimate decision maker in all of this. It requires the school transportation contracts of more than 1 million to have liquidated damage provisions unless the board explicitly approves not having them. It also says that a school transportation contract of $1 million or more can only not have liquidated damages provisions if the board votes to exclude them. The board has to also maintain documentation on how the decisions were made so that if there were future audits, they can be reviewed. This isn't really about trying to get at confidential information, but really trying to make sure that there's a record in the case of someone reviewing this in the future, that we've had prior audits at the state level with various departments and agencies where nobody could point to who finally made the decision not to pursue liquidated damages, even though it was in the contract. So there's a lot of finger pointing going around in state agencies and departments when even the provisions were included. This is to get at that. So those should be the amendments.
Okay, any questions, Delegate Tarasa?
Really quickly, I think this is a great bill and I like the changes. I'm just curious. So the removal of model policy is just because they're going to have a policy, not a model policy. Is that? I just want to make sure I'm understanding the taking out of the word model, but I think this is good and I like the amendments.
Yeah, I think they said they didn't need a model policy, that it will just be a policy that they carry forward.
Great,
It'll be in their own policies.
thank you.
Okay. Ms. Doring, can you please call the vote on the amendment?
Yes. Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Senator Gazone,
Yes.
Senator Hester,
Yes.
Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Gazone,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Terraza,
Yes,
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Delegate Wu,
Yes.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
The motion passes.
And now on the bill as amended.
Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Senator Gazone,
Yes.
Senator Hester,
Yes.
Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Gazone,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Terraza,
sorry, I didn't realize on mute. Yes,
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Delegate Wu,
Yes.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. And now we are moving on to Howard County 624. This is Delegates Wu and Tarasa and their bill on ranked choice voting for Howard County Board of Education elections. We discussed this earlier and also voted on it last year. Any additional questions? Is there a motion?
I move.
second,
Okay. Ms. Doring, please call the vote.
Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Senator Gazone,
Yes.
Senator Hester,
Yes.
Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Gazone,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Terraza,
yes,
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Delegate Wu,
Yes.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Howard County 824. This was my bill on payment in lieu of taxes agreements for moderate income housing units. I do have an amendment that you should all have copies of. I'll move the bill.
Second. As
Okay.
amended, right? You're moving
Ye-
amendment or?
Yes, so I'll move the amendment, and you all have the drafted amendment. This is what we discussed last week. We didn't have it drafted at the time, but this was to address concerns about making sure there's consistency and transparency in these agreements as they're negotiated. And so this requires the county to determine their methodology and actually publish that on the website and share it before the first pilot agreement would be proposed to the council. And then it requires them to reevaluate and potentially revise the methodology every 5 years, at least once every 5 years, but they can revise as needed. but those revisions would need to be published as well. So I have shared this language with the administration and they're comfortable with it. I believe I already moved the amendment, correct? I guess any questions? All right, seeing none. Ms. Doring, can you please call the vote on the amendment?
Yes. Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Senator Gazone,
Yes.
Senator Hester,
Yes.
Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Gazone,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Terraza,
Yes.
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Delegate Wu,
Yes.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. And now on the bill as amended.
I move as amended.
Second? Is that, or we've just?
Yeah, I think we're ready for
Oh,
Ms. Doring to
okay.
call the vote.
Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Senator Gazone,
Yes.
Senator Hester,
Yes.
Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Gazone,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Terraza,
Yes.
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Delegate Wu,
Yes.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to Howard County 1024. This is Delegate Terraza's bill on reports of donations and disbursements for Village Board or Columbia Council candidates. We've discussed it previously. Is there a motion?
Move the bill.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any additional questions? Seeing none, Ms. Doring, please call the vote.
Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Senator Gazone,
Yes.
Senator Hester,
Yes.
Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Gazone,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Terraza,
Yes.
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Delegate Wu,
Yes.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are going to hold Howard County 1424 for a moment. And 1524, this was a bill requested by the administration to alter the term length for the Howard County Agricultural Preservation Advisory Board to be consistent with other county boards and commissions. So it's going to a 3-year term. Any questions? We do have Ms. Arthurs from the county on the line if anyone has any questions. Delegate Wu.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. So I have a question. Like actually in general, 4 years or 5 years, it's not 3 years. Can you educate me at least how many years for other commissions? I didn't pay attention to that before.
So previously, Howard County commissions were 5 years, but in our most recent charter review, there was a recommendation from our charter review committee to minimize that 5-year commitment down to 3 years. So the state legislation just wasn't concurrent, and it didn't match up with our charter change of 3 years. And there are 2 other jurisdictions in the state of Maryland who I think 2 have 4 years. Some have 5, and then we have 3. So this doesn't change anything in terms of who's currently serving or minimize the current term that they have. It just makes the state's term concurrent with our local terms.
Thank you, Ms. Arthurs. Thank you.
Ms. Terraza. Ms.
Yeah, thank you.
Terraza, excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Ms. Arthurs, does that mean that anybody serving now has there's, I think you may have answered this, but I wasn't quite sure. Anybody serving now will continue to serve the term they were appointed for. So if
Yes.
it's 5 years, it would be 5 years. Okay. But then it changes it going forward.
It just moves it and changes
Okay.
it going forward. And I can get you the exact breakdown, but many of
Yeah.
the members who've served on
Great.
the board have been reappointed to it.
Great. Will you take a motion to approve, a move approval?
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
All right. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Doring, please call the vote.
Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Senator Gazone, Senator Hester,
Yes.
Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Gazone,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
yes,
Delegate Terraza,
Yes.
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Delegate Wu,
Yes.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to jump ahead to the 3 LBIs we have. If folks are comfortable with it, we'll take them all 3 as a consent calendar. If
second,
just, is there any that anyone wants to pull off?
I have a question.
Sure.
Have we, it is necessary for the the applicant to be a nonprofit, is that correct?
I believe a nonprofit or government entity is my understanding.
So do we know that all of these are that? Either a nonprofit or a government entity?
To the best of my knowledge, yes. I did not put any of these in, so I'm not intimately familiar with the requests.
Okay, it could be that maybe one of the applications needs to be changed, but it appears that there's an individual's name on the application as opposed to a nonprofit or a government entity. And I just wanted to flag that in case the chairs wanted to comment or.
Okay. I don't know, Senator Lamb, do you have a specific, can you, Delegate Watson, which specific one are you referring to?
I am referring to the second one.
Okay. Evolve Pickleball.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's a nonprofit. If it's just a matter of fixing the application, that's fine. And also, I mean,
Well,
we can't provide funding to an individual, so it doesn't
Right,
really
right.
matter, but I
I'm,
want to make sure our systems and checks and balances are in place, that's all.
yeah. I'm guessing that was an error in completing the form, but we will certainly follow up and confirm that before it gets filed.
Exactly. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay, I believe I heard a motion on the consent calendar. I'm not sure I heard a second.
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 Great. Ms. Doring, can you please call the vote?
Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Senator Gazone, Senator Hester,
Yes, provided they're all eligible.
Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Gazone,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
yes, with the aforementioned proviso,
Delegate Terraza,
Yes.
Delegate Watson,
Yes, with the same provision.
Delegate Wu,
Yes.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes, if they're all eligible.
The motion passes pending eligibility.
Thank you. Okay, let's return to Howard County 4 for a vote. we discussed this at the beginning of the meeting. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, if I
Mhm.
can,
Sure.
I'd like to just clarify what the issue is. If I can share, is it possible for me to share my screen?
I believe so. What are you,
Okay,
I mean, are you not able to share your screen? You
I
should.
want to make sure that that's, okay, so let's go ahead and do that. All right. Okay. All right, so trying to share this. The question from the Harper's Choice Board is they were concerned, can you see it now? Yes. That in 11B, where it says, under B2 or 1-2, line 18, for commercial real property, an employee of a commercial real property tenant who is assigned to a site subject to Columbia Association covenants and governing documents is considered a resident of a community that is subject to Columbia Association covenants and governing documents. Their concern, as stated in their letter, was that this was in contrast to their village governing documents. So now I'm going to share where this came from and propose an amendment to my bill. This is the governing documents. See this? This is where it came from. If you look in M, it reads.
You're no longer sharing,
Okay,
just to
sorry.
clarify.
Okay, let me pull that back up. Okay. Sharing now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so in M, up in the above Article 2, M as in mother, resident shall mean and refer to each tenant actually residing on, parentheses, or conducting a business on, in parentheses, any part of the accessible property, and 2, members of the immediate family of each owner and of each such tenant actually living in the same household with such owner or such tenant, period. Subject to such rules and regulations as Columbia Parks and Recreation Association, which is now CA, may heretofore specify, including the imposition of a special fee for use if CPRA shall so direct the term. Resident shall also, this is the relevant term, resident shall also include the employees, guests, or invitees of any such owner or tenant, if the board, in its absolute discretion by resolution so directs. So the first part talks about businesses, and this talks about the ability of CA to change that. So what I was going to suggest that might address their concerns, but again, I think the bill simply restates what already exists. So let me stop the share and bring up this last page. And so share. Okay. Is that on the bill, on line 18, that language be added that basically says, unless Columbia Association or its villages or town center in their governing or state otherwise. And then 2, for commercial real property, that an employee of a commercial tenant who is assigned to the site subject to CA covenants and governing documents is considered a resident. So that if the villages have documents, if CA has acted to remove what was the original stated definition of resident, then that would stand. But if they have not, then after 50 some years of being considered residents, they would be considered residents. And yes, it would mean that if they then 5 years from now, 2 years from now, wanted to take that away, then that would probably require some legislation through this delegation.
Okay, I see a hand up from Delegate Terrassa.
Yeah, so what can you just tell me what we were looking at before?
Yes, that was the deed agreement, declaration of covenants, easements, and liens that was filed December 15th, 1966. Liber 468, page 157 with the county. Those were the founding documents.
Okay, okay. So, and I'm not sure I understand. I didn't follow exactly what you're saying would happen here.
So apparently Harper's Choice says that if we allow the employees of commercial properties that are subject to the lien to be considered residents, that goes against their governing documents. This is an issue we've discussed in the meetings I've had, and we actually tweaked the language because we wanted to be sure that this right of residency did not in 2024 extend to some company located elsewhere, that has multiple locations, but they happen to have one location on Columbia lien or CA lien paying property, and therefore all their employees are considered residents. And I think their concern was, does this affect voting? But this document really just talks about residents. For instance, in practicality, what it has meant is that if, my practice was located in Dorsey Hall, my employees were entitled to the resident discount to be part of the gym. And so this was tweaked to say that only the residents who are assigned to the location that is a lien paying location would be entitled to those kinds of benefits, which has been, again, businesses have enjoyed the opportunity to let them, it's a benefit of being employed and working on these sites. So we can.
How do we know that doesn't impact voting rights? Because I know in a number of the villages, businesses don't have voting rights.
Well, we can certainly add language saying, with the exception of voting, we can add language to clarify if that's a sticky issue. Just I'm open to amending that to A, as I just suggested, allowing that if they're existing, if villages, Columbia Association or Town Center have already existing documents that rescind those rights that were granted in the founding documents, that should stand, so they're accepted.
Right, but I don't think they rescind them. I mean, I definitely appreciate what you're trying to do here, and I think it's important to Columbia residents. But I'm confused about, well, I guess I'd just like to make sure we're saying it in a clear way, because we wouldn't want to change the voting rights in this bill where we're not trying to.
Right. Well, we could say except for voting rights, right? For commercial real property, that they're considered residents of a community that is subject to the governing the governing document said they're considered residents. So that's what I took. M says they're considered residents. And
Okay,
and I think what happens is that Columbia Association has already defined what that voting means. But if we want to give that leniency, then we just specify, except, that for the purposes of.
Delegate Wu has his hand raised. I'm gonna, is that on this or a different question?
Yeah.
Delegate Wu, go ahead.
Yeah, so Delegate Hill, I wonder whether you mind hold this a little bit. Because I have a concern about how, especially for the people, employee of a commercial tenant, that can be very broad, even part-time, maybe part of that. Can I check with some CA board members and we can vote this on tomorrow morning? We still have another session.
I'm open to that, Madam Chair, for coming tomorrow morning. Alternatively, we can take that particular piece out and come back, but I prefer to, again, because it's consistent with the founding documents, to work with Delegate Wu and Delegate Terrasa and come back to it tomorrow.
Okay.
But I don't
Well,
want
then
to not get
we
voted.
will hold this bill. And if you can please stop sharing your screen, Delegate Hill, then I can see everyone's beautiful faces. Okay, so we are now to Howard County, we have Howard County 1824 and Howard County 1324 left, as well as Howard County 1424, which we had just held previously. Let me just check in. Delegate Teresa, I see you have, is your hand just left up from before?
Just left up from before, sorry.
Okay, sorry. And Senator Hester.
I actually had a question on Delegate Hill's bill.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Just since we're holding it, maybe she could help. I couldn't find any testimony related directly to that bill. And I'm always kind of, nervous when the state is like, voting on things that are handled by Columbia Association and whether it really requires state legislation or not. So my question is, could somebody point me towards any testimony that we got for this bill?
We have the letter from Harper's Choice again, and I think when you may have missed earlier, I have met with the governing board, the Columbia Council, and with several of the village boards who had questions about the bill, and met with Columbia Association in drafting the bill to make sure that legally the language was consistent with was written the way it needed to be. But we did not have at the public hearing any testimony for or against, and unless Rebecca knows differently, we haven't received anything outside of those discussions with Columbia Association.
It would certainly make me feel better if Columbia Association would just write a short letter saying they support the bill.
Yeah, I think their position is neutral, but I can certainly request if they can get something to us today.
That would be awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Delegate Teresa, your hand is back up, so.
I mean, as much as it would love to get them to weigh in, it sounds like Delegate Hill's done the work with them, and I don't see how they could weigh in on anything. They meet on Thursdays, I think, still. Evenings, I don't see how they're going to be able to weigh in by tomorrow. So just a sort of a little point there, but I do understand the desire to have that. I think
the point, I'm sorry, I think the point, and Senator Hester, this is the point of consideration. They've been aware of the bill and the fact, we only have one letter questioning that provision. You're not comfortable accepting that. They've had opportunity to weigh in and have not objected. Just want to be clear.
No, I guess that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so we have 3 bills left, and there are amendments that were introduced that sort of intertwine these 3 bills. Delegate Wu, I see you have your hand raised.
Chair Feldmark, I think
Yes.
the bill has not been officially introduced yet. Is that right? These 3 bills, we didn't talk about it yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. You are correct for Howard County 18. You're right.
Okay.
14 and 13 we have discussed previously, but 18 we have not. I apologize. Delegate Wu.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So the 1824, I want to make sure, like, we talk with the county executive and the county council. They're aware and they provide the input to establish a task force. I think both of them are supporting this initiative. At the same time, we heard about a lot of issues about deferred maintenance or the new school couldn't keep pace with the student population growth. And there's around 500 deferred maintenance or up to $1 billion if we consider portable classroom included. We have more than 255 portable classroom. If you want to replace that, that's around $1 billion in total. And I just want to really highlight, because people testified already, so this bill is not trying to reduce money to agriculture side, because we even didn't talk about it, and we don't know how eventually it will work out. But my main focus with this bill is really to relocate some money has been parked there. We have around $120 million, which is being collected from fire tax at the same time, which has not been used, which designated to build 6 new fire stations. I think we had discussion with other stakeholders. There's no way we can build 6 fire stations in a year or even in several years, because just find the location fire station is complicated. Last time, it takes several years to really just find one behind the school board. So so that's the reason I'm assuming there's a way we allocate some money to fire rescue, but we can reduce that percentage a little bit because the need is not there right now. And if we can move some part to do school reconstruct, deferred maintenance, or even new school construction, that will help alleviate some problem we're facing in our school system, just about the Oakland Mill issue, which is so recently. And I'm not saying we don't care about a certain part. I just say we want to dynamically look at this issue. And maybe after a few years, if the need wrapped up in the fire station build construction, we can move that again. It's really try to relocate. And the task force is really try to task to understand this issue. And then we got a lot of amendment. I would say one from Senator Hester, one from Chair Fedmark. I really appreciate you put it there. I don't know how to consolidate that because each one has a different angle. I think I'm really open to any kind of amendment. At the same time, I feel this is something we should do. During my 4 years on school board, I always ask the question, when do we begin to tackle the issue of deferred maintenance, either $500 million or $1 billion, depending on how we count that. But it's a huge number. And because it's so huge, sometimes we even didn't dare just look at it and say, how can we create a pathway to fix the problem? I think this task force is really just ready to roll off the sleeve to say, okay, this is the way we should find the funding and try to really reduce that wait time and begin to offer a better environment for our students and teachers. I'm looking forward to any discussion, the way to really make it better, but I would thank you very much for the time.
Okay. Delegate Hill, this is a question.
Thank you,
on
Madam
18.
Chair. I actually really appreciate both amendments, and I think I would like to move first delegate.
So Delegate Hill, if I can ask you to hold off, because I think we need a little more, there are amendments that tie multiple bills together. And so I think we need to discuss them all before we start moving anything. So
Gonna move the
so
amendment.
Senator Lamb, did you want to speak about amendments to Howard County 14?
Well, I think there were 2 sets of amendments, right?
Right.
There's a set of amendments from Senator Hester. There's also a set of amendments from you as
For
well.
me, right.
In glancing over the amendments from Senator Hester, the one piece there that kind of gives me some hesitation is it does pull in the transfer tax into this. Okay, so this is Howard County 14-24. This is a work group to look at the public-private partnerships. We've had that discussion before. There were amendments that came forward, 2 sets of them. Senator Hester's amendment, which I think you have before you, does pull in the transfer tax into the discussion of this work group. I know the transfer tax has been touched on in Delegate Wu's bill in 18-24. I guess what gives me some pause in bringing it into this piece is that's kind of the P3 discussion is a little bit different than the transfer tax discussion, and a lot of that would require some readjustments of the transfer tax, which I think is really a different discussion from the P3 part of this. And so I think for that reason, I would probably prefer the set of amendments that Chair Feldmark had put forward. But I'm open to thoughts or discussions on that. That's just kind of top line when I was glancing through these amendments.
Yeah, so just to clarify, it does bring in the transfer tax. It also brings in the commercial excise tax, which is from Howard County 13-24. So that's why I wanted to have all three of these bills sort of in a discussion before we start, understanding sort of the permutations and how they get interrelated. I will share my personal preference, and I've spoken to a few of you individually about this. I think it's important to keep the P3 discussion separate from a revenues discussion, because I think part of the danger of P3s, right? Part of the risk is sort of an appearance of providing funding when they really don't provide any funding. It's simply a financing mechanism, right? And so I was concerned about the idea of folding them together into a single work group, sort of perpetuating that confusion, right? So that's why I feel it was important to keep them separate. Now, in conversations with the administration, I do want to share there are some concerns about the timing and staffing of two separate work groups that include largely overlapping membership. And so I think those are valid concerns we need to continue to, work with the administration on. So I just wanted to toss out those couple of points, and I see a hand raised from Senator Hester, followed by Delegate Terrassa and Delegate Hill.
So thank you very much, Madam Chair. My intent was, kind of thinking about the administration, thinking they might have this concern for us to have one task force with multiple charges, so that we could be as efficient as possible with staff time. I do take your point about the P3 as a financing option. There's other financing options too. So it might be interesting to look at revenue sources and multiple financing options in the same work group, because you do have to do both. You have to raise the revenue, and then you got to figure out how you're going to finance it. And so I'm kind of, and I just really think that we need the administration on board. And I don't know if there's somebody from the county who would like to say something at this point.
Hey there. Thank you, Senator Hester. I would say that it would definitely be helpful to be part of the conversation, as we are, of course, concerned about staff utilization and providing more resources, because of course we want to be able to provide as much information and engagement as possible. And so yes, concurrent work groups, although studying larger different issues, having there be some overlapping scopes of the projects, it's just a concern. And I think just wanting to have more conversations as to how we can both produce the results and be able to provide the information that will serve the purpose of both pieces of legislation.
Okay. Delegate Terrassa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to point out, I think we've lost a few of our members because they had committee or subcommittee meetings. So we might want to finish this conversation another day, but I'm happy to at least state an opinion if you want it now, or if you want to wait.
I think go ahead and share your comment, and then I think we will need to hold these, but go ahead.
Yeah, I really appreciate your comments, Madam Chair, about the differences, but I do agree with Senator Hester that maybe we should look at revenue and financing options as sort of a big picture. I do think it's important to emphasize that is a financing. It's not a revenue, it's a financing option. And I think I've made clear I have concerns about P3s. I know this is just a study or a work group to look at them, and I appreciate that's the intent of the sponsor of that. So I guess my preference would be to have them together and look at both of those things, but I'm also still open, and I appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you. I will just say, look, I'm open to the conversation, and I think clearly if there was a clear delineation, right, that it was one task force looking at both revenue options and potential financing mechanisms, and they were clearly delineated within that scope of work. That could certainly help address my concern. You know, my initial concern with the amendment that was proposed was it seemed to be folded in as, you know, in the same list of options. And I think that's what caused me pause. I don't see any other hands raised right now. I do think we need to have some additional work with the administration in terms of what is viable from their perspective. I think Senator Lamb, unless you feel otherwise, I think at this point we can wrap up and we'll reconvene tomorrow morning at 8:30. Does that work for everyone? Those of you who are able to make it. We know we
Madam Chair, is that all that we have left is those various financing option bills and Delegate Hill's bill?
yes.
Okay, thank
Do
you.
you have a
So-
quorum for tomorrow?
As long as everyone is still standing by the responses provided to Ms. Doring last week, yes.
Okay.
So. All right. Okay, so we will see everyone tomorrow morning at 8:30. Thank you.
Thank you.